Okay, welcome to part 3. Let's just do a couple more examples before we'll give you a chance to practice for a little while. So in this example here, we're given a triangle, QRS, and we're given all three sides. We want to find out which one the largest angle is. So let's make our diagram. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. So my largest side on this diagram looks to be this one. So I'll make that one 18. Let's try a different marker here. There we go, make that one 18. We should make this angle R. This looks like my smallest angle right here. So I'll call that Q and make this Q over here. And then I got side S and angle S. Okay, so the largest angle should be the one across from the largest side. So that means what's actually asking me to find here is angle R. And this is going to be my unknown here. So, can I use sine law here? You can see pretty quickly that I do not have any side angle pairs because I don't have any angles whatsoever. So this is a cosine law situation. So I'm going to set up my equation. Now, with cosine law, if I want to solve for angle R, I need to have side R as the one in the equation that's over on the left side by itself. So I'm going to have R squared, and they're going to have over here Q squared plus S squared minus 2 times Q times S times the cos of R. Okay, that's the equation you have to solve. Now you'll notice here that our unknown here is way over here inside the cosine on the right side of the equation. So there's going to be a lot of algebra that needs to be done to get to our final answer, but first things first, let's just put in the values we know from the triangle. So R is 18, Q is 12, S is 15, and let's just simplify this as much as we can. Again, we got a lot of algebra to do to get to this final answer, so let's just make things easier on ourselves. So 18 squared gives me 324. Here I get 144 plus 225. Here I get 360, 2 times 12 times 15. It looks a little bit nicer now. We still got some ways to go here. So just to make this a little bit simpler, I'm going to have 324, and this is going to give me 369 over here. Okay, now, again, we need to avoid making silly little mistakes here. You cannot combine these together. Why? The 360 is multiplied by cosine R, the 369 is not. So remember, if this was just 360x here, okay, there was no way you'd ever consider putting these two together because, again, these are not like terms, right? This does not have an x, this one does. So again, this one's multiplied by cos r, this one's not. You cannot combine these, say this is equal to 9 cos r. Let's not make that mistake. So what we need to do instead is subtract from both sides of the equation 369 and see what that gives us. So if we go 324 minus 369, I get negative 45 over here, and negative 360 cosine of r. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Again, the algebra is pretty complicated here. So negative 360 times cosine of r is on the right. How do I solve an equation when there's multiplication involved? I use the opposite. I use division. So I'm going to divide both sides here by negative 360. Okay, those two negatives cancel there to give me a positive. So I'm going to get 45 over 360 is equal to cos r. So I've got all the way down to here. Remember, how do I solve for an angle? Well, I have to use the inverse function. So if I want to get angle r here, I have to do the inverse cosine of 45 over 360. So I run that through my calculator, and I get approximately 82.8 degrees. So a lot of algebra, again, that went on in there. It takes practice, but if we follow our rules, if we don't break any of the rules we learned back in grade 8 or grade 9, we'll be okay. We just got to make sure that we go through each step of that process there, so we don't make any little silly mistakes. Okay, so now we use cosine law to solve for an angle. We've also used sine law to solve for a side or an angle, cosine law to solve for a side. We've done every type of problem you might see. So let's just try and put them all together, do one more example, and I'll give you a chance to practice. So here's one I'm actually going to ask you to solve for the missing value here, which in this case is x. I just want you to think about how you would go about doing it. So with a partner on your own, pause the video and just write the steps you would go through to get to solve for this value right here, and then we'll take it up when you're ready. Okay. So hopefully you've thought about that one here. This is definitely a multi-step problem. The first thing I would do here, I'd look at this triangle ABC and say, hey, look, I got 2 of 3 angles. I can find this angle right here. This would be angle BCA. So you can find that angle first. And that's not going to be, math is too complicated because all the angles have to add up to 180. So we're just going to use what we call SAT, or sum of the angles in a triangle. Okay. Once we have that, now we have an angle side pair, 13 centimeters with angle C. So we in theory could use sine law to solve for another side in the triangle. What I'm going to look for here is to solve for this side AC. Where that comes useful is now I have a side inside this right triangle that I can then use to solve for x. So I'm going to use sine law to find AC. So once I have AC, whatever that distance is, looking at this triangle, ACD is a right triangle, so I don't have to use sine law and cosine law now, although they will work. It just is a little bit of overkill. What I can use now is back what we learned before, the SOHCAHTOA. So if I use 74 degrees, x is my opposite side. I'm going to have this side right here, the AC now. That's going to be my adjacent. So now I can use the tan ratio. So tan 74 degrees equals x, or whatever I get for AC, to find x. Again, feel free to go through that math if you want to actually find the value, but I just want you to think through a multi-step problem here to see what you would do. Okay, so that's it for today. I think you've done a lot of examples for one day. I think we need a break, need a chance to practice this, sort of reinforce it. So go to your homework here. There's a lot here to keep you busy in day one. A lot of using sine law and cosine law. Again, it looks tricky. It just takes a lot of practice. Get used to it, and then when we're finished that, we're going to look at some word problems. Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers.